Going back, let's talk again here. Yeah, I was talking here about the level of research, dental research here in Brazil, and we have a high level today, especially about the number of international publications and about the level of citations in the international literature. It is really nice for us Brazilian researchers. And the field that have a huge number of publications, especially is the dental materials and implantology. And our universe in the Quacquarelli-Simons World Universe Ranking is the 116, and especially for dentistry, today we are at the 18th in the rank of the national rank. And for our surprise and pleasure, we have 3 Brazilian dental schools, the top 40 schools here. But the most important, all the time that we talk about the aesthetic dentistry, it is a shelter in my private clinic that we have a lot of dental magazines. And all the time that we talk about aesthetic dentistry, we must show to our patient about this subject. It is really important. Then we have several different dental magazines in Portuguese and in English in our shelter. And it is really important that all the time that we work with aesthetic dentistry, we must talk about the bleaching. And the bleaching, normally we use at-home bleaching is the first choice for us. Or if the patient is really anxious, then we prefer to use the combined technique. Start with inox, with like whiteness ATP, and my favorite is the ATP Auto Mix, because the syringe is much easier to apply, and but whiteness perfect 10 or 16% we use most of the patients. Then the idea is to break the molecule of the pigments inside the enamel, inside the dentin, and we have a bleached appearance. And most of the patients look for bleaching today. It is a big issue, because when you use bleaching, we must apply the bleaching at least 1 week before that we're gonna change the restorations. Then why we must apply the bleaching at least 1 week before, or finish the bleaching 1 week before? Because first, the final shade, because when we finish the last night, the patient had used the carbamide peroxide, and we must wait for at least 1 week, because the shade, the final shade. The second, because the adhesion, because the high concentration of oxygen on the surface of the enamel is a big problem for the adhesion, then we must avoid to make new fillings in a short period after the bleaching period. And then talk about the anterior restorations. This publication, Dental Materials, this review from some Brazilian researchers from south of Brazil. They showed us that the amount of restorations that we have now to change is really high just for aesthetic purpose. Then, a couple of years ago, we prepared this class. This class talk about the 10 keys of the aesthetic restorations in our clinic. And the first key is the use of correct informations. Let's talk a little bit more about this subject. Most of the clinicians here in Brazil, we have like a class 4. In this clinical case, is a veneer. It's a class 4 veneer restoration. The most of clinicians, they all the time look for, they are really anxious to remove the old restoration, to apply the new restoration. But the first point is, let's see the correct information. What about the shade? What about the color of this canine, the upright canine? That we must change this canine to a lateral incisor. But look, the shade is a brownish tooth. Then we must apply a direct veneer with a thickness a little bit bigger to cover this brownish appearance. Then think about when we're gonna change the shade of the tooth. We must think about how much change of the color we must have. In this case, it's high because the teeth of the patient is like weight A1, but for this canine is like a A4. Then we must have room enough to apply a dentin shade. The most important layer here is the dentin shade, because the dentin shade gonna cover this dental structure, brownish dental structure. Then we're gonna apply the enamel, it may be a translucent shade. Then we must have room enough. Other point, here you have palatal inclination of this tooth. Then we have a little bit space to apply the dentin shade and the enamel shade. Maybe we don't need to wear too much the surface of this canine. Another point, we can see that on the cervical region nearby the gingiva is so saturated. Then we must cover this part with a dentin shade. Then when we're gonna prepare the enamel surface, we must wear up to the gingival line or little bit enter the gingival ridge. And another point, we must measure the length, the width of the tooth. Because if we apply for a lateral incisor the same dimension that we have for a central incisor, the smile will become worse. Then here is really important to get all the information that we can get to apply the new filling. Here we got an impression, and to make a new smile for this patient, we cannot change the central incisors, but we're gonna change the lateral incisors. And some reference we must have for the dental anatomy. Here we have some dimensions for the lateral, considering this dimension, the gingival incisor length. We have like 100, and the width will be like 70%. This is a publication we did in FDM News. It's the FDM magazine. Is available on the website. We published a couple years ago. And it's really important. All the time that we talk about the shade, talk about resin composed, we must think about the path of the light. Then the light can reflect on the dental surface, can deflect, then the light go through in this direction and deflect another direction. The reflection is the same direction of the light. Deflection is the another direction of the light. Absorption, the absorption on the dentin layers normally. And transmission, the transmission of the light is through the enamel, like in incisal edge. This is a APP from Ivo Smile. It's really nice. We can use in iPad. Then we can show to the patient. We can take a picture of the patient, and then we can change the smile for the patient in a couple of seconds. It's one digital stuff that you can use in our clinical routine. Here is a picture from this book from Hilton Riquier. It's a Brazilian guy that's living now in US. And you have this book in English too. It's the Quintessence International. Then this is the angle that we have for this surface is the reflection. On this surface, the proximal surface, around the surface, is the deflection area. Then it's really important to think about this dental anatomy. Then if you look for to become those tooth a little bit shorter, then we can move this this line a little bit for the center. If you look for a big tooth, then we can move those lines for the proximal contact. It is really important. Diagnose is really important all the time that we're gonna apply dentistry in our office. We must have X-ray. But look here, is another clinical case. Is a clinician that looked for me a couple months ago. Then she said to me, "Look for my first molar. Can you see any decay over there? No. But I think that I have a decay over there in the mesial contact. Mesial contact. I don't know, because I can see a black spot nearby the marginal ridge. Okay, let's use this appliance. This is a light transmission. Then we use a optic fiber. Then we can see right here that we have a crack on the marginal ridge. Then we can see the light goes through up the crack and cannot go through after the crack. Let's see with another light. Oh, we have a crack here, the mesial proximal contact of the molar. Then here we use a diamond burr, a thin diamond burr. We open a hole nearby the crack and we could saw a decay. Look over there. Then we use the light transmission through the dental structure to help us to remove the decay. And here you have a conservative dentistry. It is the main point that we focus on our clinic today. Most conservative, the better. Most conservative is the better. Then, in this situation, we use a book fill material, but a flow book fill, opus book fill flow. Then we fill up the cavity up to like 1 millimeter of the surface. Then the last layer, you have used the Vitra composed resin, all the materials from FGM. Then it is the conservative dentistry, minimal intervention dentistry. Then the idea is to be conservative for the marginal ridge and use the perfect material for the perfect clinical situation. Flowable material to fill up, avoid voids inside the filling material, and the best material to have a resistance on the surface, and obviously the aesthetic situation. Second key, color, hydration, reflective index, and thickness principle. Then here we use the Vitra from FGM. We're gonna talk more about this product, but here we make some tests. When the patient arrives, sit on the chair, the dental chair, then the first stuff that we're gonna do is not to remove the old restoration, but to make a test, a color test. Here, we got a small portion of the compost resin. Then we make a test here. But it's curious that because we use here, it is the translucent shade, the OPL, and here is the translucent shade neutral. All the time we're gonna make the color test, we must light cure, because some compost, especially the translucent shades, we have a small change when we light cure. It is really important that the new technology that we have in FGM products, the APS technology, Advanced Polymerization System, is a nice technology to avoid the delta E, the color change. But I prefer up to now to light cure the portion of resin compost, because the smallest the delta E that we have for color change, I prefer to avoid the delta E. And we must have like 20 seconds light cure. No, just 5 seconds is enough, just a test. Then here, we look for the best shade for enamel and denting. Here we can see just the denting portion. Here we can see the denting covered with the enamel shade. Then we have used such shades, the EB1 for enamel and denting A1 for denting. Then all the time we must adjust first the denting. The denting is close to the structure of the teeth. It's okay, nice. And why did you test the shade on the central incisor? Because we look for the best shade to reach this shade for the central incisor. Then we cover with enamel to see the exact shade. Because if you have a thin layer of dentin, we can have some shades or some colors from the dental structure, especially for a veneer. If you have a thick layer of dentin, we're gonna have a more opaque, then we can change the saturation of the tooth structure. And the enamel, if you have a thin enamel on the dentin layer, then you have a high reflection of the light. If you have a thick layer of the enamel, then on a thick layer, then we're gonna become more grayish. Then take care. It is really important. This moment is really important in aesthetic dentistry. Then in this moment, we're gonna adjust the thickness of dentin and the thickness of enamel. Here, some tests for translucence. And another aesthetic research that we use is the polarization filter for the camera to take a picture. Then the polarization filter avoids the shine. Then is more reliable for to figure out the real reflection of the light. Third key, use of the principle of different hardness and reflection of the UV light. Here, we are removing the old restoration, but the most important, what kind of burr we're gonna use here? We must use a burr that avoid to wear the enamel surface, because in this moment we must remove only the resin composite, not the enamel. And normally here in Brazil we like to use the diamond burr. Diamond burr, why we use the diamond burr? Diamond burr we use to remove the enamel, the hard tissue, but we look for to remove only the composed resin to avoid to increase the cavity. Then the first one, we can remove only the composed resin. Then this burn is a multi-blade burn, 20, 30 blades. Then we're gonna remove, normally use air jet to refrigerate the surface. Then we remove the resin compost, avoid water, because when you use water, we don't know exactly what is enamel, what is resin compost, but we must avoid the high temperature here. Here, after the remotion of the old composed resin, now we have the real situation for this case. Then we can saw that the clinician before where a lot the enamel surface will have enamel all on the margins. Perfect, is nice, because the best choice for adhesion is to have enamel on the interface with the composed resin. It's the best adhesion. But we have some points that look like that have denting exposed, and we're gonna make a cervical preparation now on this enamel, because we must cover the saturated dental surface. Then now we start to use a diamond burr. Then we prefer to use a conical with the top rounded diamond burr to avoid a step, just to create a line to cover with composed resin, especially with the denting layer. The denting layer to become more clear. Here, in another angle, we can see exactly the angle that we're gonna wear the enamel surface, the protection of the adjacent teeth to avoid to reach the other teeth. Full moisture control. That is really important. When we talk about adhesion, we must use rubber, or we must control all the humidity. Think about when we are working on a vinyl like this one, how many minutes we're gonna spend? For me, at least 1 hour. 60 minutes is too much time to work. Then we must control all the humidity on the environment. Then the patient, maybe when you look for another stuff, we're gonna take a composed resin syringe. The patient maybe put the tongue on the dental surface. After you apply the adhesive system, then we must avoid this situation. We must use the total control of humidity. Here, we have used a rubber dam, and the 6th key, always adhesion guarantee. For this adhesion, we have used the Amber Universal APS, the adhesive system from FGM, that we have a universal adhesive system. Then we choose all the time for a selective enamel etching. Why? Because when we use the the auto etching of the system is good for denting. That's not good for enamel. Then the best choice is the recommendation of the Academy of Dental Materials that we must use a selective etching for enamel. How many seconds? 30 seconds on enamel, and we avoid to etch the denting surface. You use the auto etching from the adhesive system. After you wash the surface, then we are wash for the same time that we etch the enamel surface, 30 seconds. Then look, the denting surface is dehydrated surface. Then here you use a cavity brush with water, just water, to for the hydration of the denting. Then we apply a thin layer of water, a small air jet to remove the excess. Then we can see denting, shine denting surface, just water. Then we're gonna apply the Amber Universal APS. After we apply the adhesive system, the small air jet, like 15 seconds after, to remove the excess of the adhesive system, because remember, between the tooth structures, enamel denting, and the resin composed or ceramic, what is the weakest material that we use? The adhesive system. Then the layer of adhesive system must be a thin layer, the thinnest layer as possible to apply. Then light cure. Some information about the technology of FGM for light cure. APS, Advanced Polymerization System, is a clever idea from the PED of the FGM. Several dental manufacturers look for new options for camphorquinone. Camphorquinone in this draw is represented by the yellow rods. Here, circles. And here is the APS system, where the manufacturer, FGM, remove a part of camphorquinone and use another initiators. But the most important, why to change the camphorquinone? Why to reduce the amount of camphorquinone? Camphorquinone, as we can see here, the camphorquinone powder is yellow. But when you, when the manufacturer prepare a compost resin, a bleached shade, like as a bleached shade, it's really hard to create a bleached shade with camphorquinone. Then several manufacturers are looking for alternatives for camphorquinone, but FGM said, oh, the best choice for light cure that we can use any light curing device is to have camphorquinone. Okay, the APS has camphorquinone. Is the most important information. APS has camphorquinone. Then we can use light curing device with monowave or polywave. Then all the device with high intensity is good for all the materials from FGM. Then it is really important that APS look for a high degree of conversion. We can see for the vitre, for the amber, the depth of the key is really nice, for especially for the bulk fill material, the opus bulk fill, and we can have nice bleached shades. Here's some information from the literature. Here we can see a publication from Marcelo Giannini, Cesar Arraes, together with the popes of light curing studies, Frederick Hugbert from University of Georgia, and Richard Price from Canada, Toronto. Then we can see the camphor quinone. The absorbance is exact on blue light. When we use the PPD, several manufacturers can use the PPD like Bisco, and PPD is on violet light, the highest absorbance. And the Lucerne and Evoserine too have the most absorbance for violet light. But let's see a little bit more about the research. Here we can see monowave light can light cure camphor quinone perfectly, but Polywave, polyphase light cure, like this one is blue phase from Ivoclar, can reach the Lucerne, the PPD, the Ivoserine. It is true. Let's see. It's a publication from American Journal of Dentistry 2015. And look here, the research compared several materials with different initiators, and we can see the conclusion that the bulk fill, the new bulk fill from this case is from Ivoclar, is not necessary to use the blue phase. We can use a monowave light cure. Look, this is another publication, a Brazilian from the Unicamp paper in Brazilian oral research paper. And look here, it's really interesting that when you use camphor quinone, is good for all light curing device. Then another point that we look for a light curing device, the collimation of the light. Then we look for biggest diameter for the tip and a collimated light like here. And here's a nice publication from Carlos Shimokawa from our university together with Richard Price. Then we can see that different light curing device, we have different irradiation, not only the depth of the radiation, but the collimation. Then we look for such situation is best one. And here we can see the APS technology for amber and the amber without the APS technology. Look, it's totally different. The yellowish appearance of camphor quinone is totally different from the APS technology. And more important, the appearance for adhesive system is the degree of conversion. When we compare the amber without APS and the amber with APS, it's much better the degree of conversion. This is a Alessandro Logercio publication 2016, and you can see in FDM website those informations. Here, the difference with APS and without APS, with camphor quinones only. And today we use basically universal adhesives. Here's some SEM images from George Perdigon with amber. And this is a nice research from Alexander Loguers in his group in State University in Ponta Grossa, Paraná, here in Brazil. He compared the use of amber with APS with more moisture and standard humidity. And we can see that with APS system, we don't have influence of the moisture, totally different for the single bond. After 1 year, look here, the amber with APS will stable. It's not the same for the competitor. And the nano infiltration after 1 year, look, we have a nice results for amber. Then we have a degradation, yes, that we have all the adhesive system, but it's limited. Then now we can see that this new technology is really good for adhesive system from FGM. And look for the root canal post cementation. We have exactly the same adhesion on the cervical region, the middle third, and the cervical, the apical third. Is the same adhesion. It's really nice when you use the all same cement combined with amber universal with APS. And to finish this slide of research information, look, when you use a Polywave, the value, or the blue phase Polywave light curing device, we have the same result that we use a mono wave device for amber and the combination of amber universal and all same core. It's really important for us because we're gonna have the same result all the time using the Polywave or the mono wave light curing. These are research from the Japanese group, the use of MDP, the molecule that was discovered by the Curare, and now we have the MDP, this molecule, and all his system from FGM, all the ambers. Then the MDP for us now is really important because most of the cavities that we restore, especially for posterior teeth, normally you have sclerotic dentin. For a sclerotic dentin, the adhesion is the same. No, the adhesion is totally different for dentin, sclerotic dentin. Then the best choice to use a adhesive system that has MDP is the Japanese publication with the group of Van Meerbeek from Belgium. Then we can see here in TN, ADS, STM analysis, the chemical analysis and the images. Then we can see that we have a binding from the dental structure, especially the hydroxyapatite and the adhesive system. There's not only micromechanical binding, but it's a chemical binding. Then, when we have a sclerotic dentin, we have a lot of calcium, but we don't have too much mechanical retention. Then we must use the adhesive system with MDP. It is really important. Seventh key, election of a good composed resin. We have a lot of resin now at the market, but we're going to use the Vitra APS from FGM because we have a nice properties, mechanical properties, hardness and shine. But let's see. Okay, let's see. Looks like a problem here, but okay. Okay, the main information that we can share with you about the Vitra we're going to share now, that if you have a low sensitivity for the light, then we have plenty of time to work with Vitra. Plenty of time to work with Vitra. Then we don't need to avoid the light of the chair. We can use regular light, and you have really nice shades. The tendency today is to have limited shades. Here we have 16 shades. We have 7 for dentin. The DA0 is the bleached one, up to the DA5 is more saturated. The enamel, we have just 5 enamels, is enough for all the purpose that you have in our clinical routine. Then we have E-bleach for bleached, in basically enamel B1, A1, A2, and A3. The translucent shades, this translucent OPL, opalescence, that we love to use in incisal ridge, and the translucent neutral that we use. In this case, we use the neutral one. And in the value, we have the high value and the medium value. When you use the value, like if you have, we are layering the restoration. You put the dentin, you put the enamel, then you look like here, then you look up. Maybe it's a little bit grayish. Then we can apply a thin layer of high value and correct. Now, if you have a A2, for example, and you put a VH, remain A2, but the reflection of the light is higher, then we have a bleach appearance, a nice correction. Then we avoid we can fix the appearance, just a thin layer of value shade. Our study here in our university, together with the University of Ceará, northeast of Brazil, then we compare several resin compost that we have here in Brazil. About the degree of conversion, then we have a nice degree of conversion. The hardness is good compared to Z350 from 3M. The polymerization stress is really similar for the competitors and is an improvement compared to Opalis. And the layering technique, let's see. Here, when we tested the shape in the second key, then we made a new anatomy for the K9, transforming in a lateral incisor. Then we tested the architecture, the shape. We tested the volume. We tested the shade. But how we tested? We just dry the surface of the old resin compost, dry the enamel surface, apply without the adhesive system. We just apply the vitra, the material that we like to test, put a layer of dentin, a layer of enamel, light cure all the layers. Then we adjust the shape and wear the surface with a diamond burr, with a green. Then we finish the test, show to the patient, give a mirror to the patient, and the patient, oh, nice, I approve. Okay, it is the first appointment. Then another appointment, then we're gonna change the restoration, and just remove the test, because it's detached easily, because we don't have adhesion. Then before to detach this restoration, the test restoration, we take an impression. Then with this impression that you can see here, we create a guide for rebuild the restoration. Here we have the guide in position. Then we open the first layer. This is the enamel shape layer. Put in position. Sculpt this first layer. Then the rheology of the material must be a nice rheology. Then vitra has this nice rheology. Then we open the compost resin mass on the surface of the guide, the polyvinyl guide. Then we put in position, light cure, and remove, like here. Then in this first layer, we use the enamel B1. Then if you have some adjustments in this moment, it's really easy to do. We can use a bisturi blade. After light cure, you use the bisturi blade to recontour the resin compost on some excess. Then the second step for layering is to put dentin. Look here, you use the dentin A0 Why? Because the substrate, the enamel and dentin were really saturated. And we put a dentin layer from the cervical up to the incisal margin, but avoid to touch the incisal ridge. Why? Because here we can build the mamelons here. Then you have a nice shade now, because you have room enough to apply a thin layer of dentin, because remember, such tooth is a little bit palatal. It is an inclination to palatal. Then we have space enough, room enough to apply the dentin shade. It is really important to use a composite resin with really opaque dentin shades. Because if you have a really opaque dentin shade, in a thin layer, we can cover the saturated substrate. Then all the time, look for dentin, really opaque dentin shades. And FDM, especially Opalis and Vitra, has and move to Diamond XL. Diamond XL is 2 up to 4 microns, but it's diamond abrasiveness. Look this new research that they published from the research from Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte in Natal, Brazil. It was published recently in 2019, and is a comparison among several composite resin in the market, and the most important, no finishing and polishing. Just apply a brush on the last layer of the composite resin. Then we can see that the Vitra is one of the most the rudeness of the surface is really shine. When we compare, when you use the Astropol for Ivoclar and use all the steps, we have almost the same shine. Then it's really nice because it's one of the Vitra APS is one of the best resin compost today in the market. When we polish the surface, we have a really shine surface. Then it's really easy. It is the research. It's a research from a university. It's not from the FGM. Is that the proof that the product is really nice. And after the polishing, take care, because we must create some dental anatomy particularities. Then here we can see some horizontal lines that is really natural to have a natural appearance. Then we can see that the shine surface as the enamel surface. Then we can see on the incisal edge, we don't use, take care here, we don't use an opaque resin here, just the translucent shade. Look, we have the translucent and enamel shade, and the levels of crystallics of this material. We have the opaque incisal ridge. Look, the quite similar for the natural tooth. And here another view. and here in another angle. Then we can see that just with a composed resin, the vitreous composed resin with one enamel, EB1, one dentin, A0, and the translucent shade TN, we have a nice restoration. Just 3 shades to have a nice restoration. And this is the idea of our presentation. Then we can compare the restoration here and the restoration as we had when the patient arrived in our office. Okay, we are open to some doubts. Let me see. Oh, nice. Here I can see that we have several guys from different countries, from Milano. Oh, so nice. Ricardo. Oh, from KSA. Oh, nice. Renata, how are you doing? Oh, Katerina from Greece. Really nice. Eman from Jordan. Mahmoud from Turkey. Really nice. Oh, La Paz, Sandro from La Paz, Bolivia. Really nice. Okay. It's a great pleasure to be here. I don't think that we have some questions here. Let me see. No. And I hope that we could share some research information about the materials that we have used in our clinical routine. It's really important that FGM is a Brazilian company open for new ideas, is a nice company open for research, and open to develop nice materials. And all the materials, before we release the new material, FDM has a nice P&D group, and we have a lot of research before to release a new material. And several universities are testing the FGM material. Now FGM is in more than 115 countries around the world. It is an international company now. It is really important that all the clinicians that use FGM products have all those information that you can see from research, different universities from different parts of the world, not only from Brazil. Thank you, FGM, to prepare some nice materials and to give this opportunity to open the access for different clinicians around the world to permit to share some informations and to share informations not only the FGM company but from the dental literature. It is a nice opportunity. Thank you. And my email is Francci, Francci, at University of São Paulo, UPS.br. Francci at uscp.br. I'm available for you by email or by Instagram or by FGM website, or especially for YouTube, from YouTube. See you guys, and thank you for your time.